Hello again, everybody. Zach Attack is here with my Atak Sportz for Monday, December 22nd, 2014. This will be likely the last Atak Sportz before Christmas. So, hope everyone has a great Christmas week. Can't believe it's Christmas week already. So, let's kick things off with, of course, speaking of weeks, Week 16 of the NFL, as of course, the playoff picture gets really intense. We head towards the final weeks of the regular season of the NFL this year. Let's kick things off with, of course, the big NFC North division battle impending between the Packers and the Lions. Next week, Week 17 in Lambeau. The game got more intense and moved to new time after the Packers destroyed the Buccaneers, which was a shellacking, should I say, the 20-3 score. The Lions, even before playing the game against the Bears yesterday, they got a playoff berth because the Eagles lost their game against the Redskins on Saturday Night Football. So Lions and Bears. Lions scored early, but then the Bears, even with Jimmy Clausen, the backup quarterback, after benching Cutler and pending a trade, got 2 touchdowns in the second quarter after a couple of turnovers. 3 turnovers in the second quarter. Another Lions game where hard pressure and nail biting became more often. Like, can Lions just play a game where they dominate the entire game and not give the entire city near heart attacks every time they almost blow a lead? Like they did against the Vikings last week, almost losing 14-0. They come back though. But then having the lead and almost blowing against the Bears. And then bang, they came rolling back upon the pun. And squeaked by the Bears. 2014 should have been more dominating performance, but still, a win's a win. We'll take anything. And with their win, like I said, the Lions and the Packers will play off for the NFC North title next week at 4:30. They just flex scheduled that because the NFL has the right to flex schedule games because of importance. So I think that game's at 4 o'clock now on Fox. And the winner basically gets the NFC North title and home field advantage and the first round bye. And the loser gets wild card. Last time the Lions won the wild card, that was 3 years ago. Second time in less than 15 years that they've been in the playoffs. Of course, last time they were in it, they lost to the Saints in the wild card. They don't have to worry about playing the Saints at all. They were eliminated from playoff contention after losing to the Falcons last night at home. Rough season for the Saints. Not as bad as the Bears, though. And I'm hearing that Jay Cutler will play next week in the final game of the season. Because I think Clausen got concussed. And the Lions player got suspended after stomping on the leg, pulling a suit, stomping on somebody's leg. Wayola, I think his name was. He said it was unintentional, but still he's suspended for 1 game. And speaking of the Lions and Packers, Lions did beat the Packers at home this year, but they haven't won in Lambeau since 1991. Heard that stat last night. See how they do. Meanwhile, I think the Bengals play the Pittsburgh Steelers next week on Sunday Night Football for the AFC North title. Bengals take on the Broncos tonight on Monday Night Football. Steelers won their game against the Chiefs. Other games include the Cowboys destroying the Colts 42-7. Automatically giving them a playoff berth for the first time since 2009. Texas won, who cares? But of course, besides those, I think other games, Chargers beat 49ers, that was Saturday night. Of course, we know 49ers all had a playoff contention as well. Fire Harbaugh. There would be people saying it's been a tough season for 49ers amid the controversy for the coach. I mean, he may coach the Bears. Like, the rumors are flying about him going to the Bears, U of M. See what happens with him after this season. Pats, of course, and Broncos are fighting for home field advantage, with the Pats winning their game against the Jets yesterday. And, of course, speaking of fighting for the number 1 seed in the NFC, not the AFC, and fighting for home field advantage, the Cardinals took on the Seahawks last night. And with the third-string quarterback, with all the first and second guys out, Cardinals got destroyed at home. But the Seahawks, who have been coming back after a rough start to the season, with a 35-6 shellacking, highlighted by a tremendous Marshawn Lynch, 80-yard touchdown. Then it goes up, hold me dick! Pause. My cousin likes saying that. So I thought of him last night when Marshawn Lynch did the big jumping hold my dick pose. If you ever seen a YouTube video, that viral video of the guy playing commentary to a Marshawn Lynch run against the Saints, he does the hold my dick. That's why my cousin says it, because he watched that video too much. So Seahawks are now still in the hunt for the number 1 seed. All they got to do is win their game next week to succeed to be the number 1 seed. So they go in the NFC and all the NFL stuff. See what happens when the playoff picture gets turned upside down next week, being the last week of the regular season and all. When, like I said, the Lions taking on the Packers for the NFC North title and all that good stuff. So there you go. Now, let's get down with UFC news. First things first, we had UFC Fight Night this past Saturday night on Fox. The 3rd straight Saturday night with a UFC event in Brazil. The final event for UFC this year. It was a okay card. It was nothing much exciting. It was just okay. It was so weak of a card, there was no fight of the night honors. That's how weird this card was. The first fight, Daniel Safarian taking on Antonio Dos Santos Jr. was a good stand-up brawl until maybe towards the second round. It ended with a TKO after Antonio Dos Santos Jr. dislocated his finger. He put it back in, but the referee called it anyway. Hope they get a rematch because it was still a good fight until that premature finish. Then Eric Silva taking on Mike Woods. Not quick submission, like a 1.5-minute submission. Usually you get quick 1-minute knockouts. But now 1-minute submission, which Eric Silva did. Great submission, though. Meanwhile, Rashid Magnomedov against Elias Saverio. It was a decent fight. It was not much excitement, but still, it was just okay. As Rashid got the victory. Then, Patrick Cummings. By the way, Rashid won in the TKO. Then Patrick Cummings and Antonio Carlos Jr. It was I call some fights fight not to lose fights, and this is one of those. Like not a lot of hitting, a lot of boo birds in Brazil. It was just okay. Of a Coco Man, it was just okay. With Patrick Cummings, I think Cummings was more on the ground a lot, taking him to the ground a lot. And Patrick Cummings got the victory by unanimous decision. Then the last fight, there was a technical difficulty. It went to the wrong fight. There was like some sort of technical flaw. They started airing the fight when Bowo lost to DJ Dillashaw until he went back to live, where you saw Bowo coming back from his injury before he was supposed to get his rematch against Dillashaw, taking on Mitch Gargan. It should have been a 1-rounder, but it went all 3 rounds because when Bowo couldn't get the job done. He couldn't get the finish until the 3rd round with a great submission, an arm triangle joke, great submission in the 3rd round. It was a decent co-main event. Like Bowo, his performance was just okay tonight. He did okay in the first 2 rounds, but he came alive in that 3rd round. So this performance kind of gives him a shot against Dillashaw again, but he needs a more dominating performance to make him say, okay, he needs another shot. You know, this performance was just okay. That might be what happened with Bobby Lawler. His first fight after losing to Hendricks was just okay. But then his second fight, he was a dominant performer, and it was a dominating fight for him. He was like really on top of it. That's when he deserved this rematch and got the title against Hendricks. So I think that's what happened with Bowo. First fight back after losing the shot after getting injured. His performance was just okay, but I think his next fight will be more dominating, exciting performance for Bowo. They'll make people say, okay, he deserves a shot. Another shot against Dillashaw, and don't get sick again. Then the main event, Lyoto Machida taking on CB Dalloway. Short fight, but it was a good knockout as Dalloway got his ass kicked. Literally kicked with a big kick to the chest by Lyoto Machida, knocking him down to the ground. Machida ground and pounded him to get the first round TKO. So it was very exciting finish for Lyoto to end the night in Brazil with a big finish. So it was an okay card in Brazil. But like UFC 181, the night was overshadowed by a big signing. Or in this case, A big return, of course, the night of UFC 181 was when CM Punk signed on with the company. And late Saturday night, as UFC Fight Night was going on, a big return was announced. A return no one thought would ever happen. After all the issues that he had with Dana White, and then going to Bellator, he's back in UFC. Rampage Jackson is back in UFC. Signed the contract late Saturday night. I was stunned by that. You know, his last couple UFC fights, he looked weak. He deserved to leave the company. And Bellator, he did okay in Bellator. He defeated King Mo. But I think he didn't like the fact that Bjorn Remy, the president, left the company in late June. So Rampage tried to negotiate a new deal with Bellator, but he went on to UFC. Bellator felt that Rampage broke their contract with Scott Coker, the new president, saying that let us be clear that Rampage is under an exclusive contract with Bellator. We will protect our contractual right. But Rampage did not release an official statement until today, saying that after 5 months of grueling negotiations and gray area contract talks with Bellator and Viacom, who airs the Bellator on Spike TV, their channel that they own, Rampage Jackson officially terminates his contract with the up-and-coming promotion, citing multiple breaches since the removal of president and founder Bjorn Remy. Jackson exercises a clause in his agreement that allows for a 45-day window to satisfy any contract dispute. Bellator, failing to fulfill the contracts of Jackson, was put on notice, failed to respond, and eventually notified that negotiations were officially terminated. Jackson's UK-based fight manager and Wolf Slayer Academy founder Anthony McGann confirms late Saturday night that Rampage has indeed signed with UFC. Details of the deal have not been made public. Jackson was made available for comment late Saturday night from his Laguna Hills, California training center, saying that I went to the UFC and we put together a deal that worked out for both of us. I'm excited to be back here. The UFC had nothing to do with me leaving. I was done with Bellator when I made that final call, and they still didn't know what I was doing, or what they would do, or what they had to do contractually. I wish those guys all the best, but I'm back where I belong, in the UFC. That is intriguing to see Rampage back in UFC. See, I want to see Rampage back in full pound. You know what I mean? His last couple fights in UFC was bad. He had bad relationships with Dana White, but Dana White can patch things up with anybody. Hint to you, Vince, and patch things up with Punk when he leaves UFC in a couple years. See how Punk does in UFC. But it's kind of weird. The last couple weeks has been weird for unique signings with UFC signing CM Punk. He's going by Phil Brooks in the company. He's not going to be called CM Punk. I think he'll be just called Phil Brooks, his real name. And Rampage is back in UFC. But while Rampage returns, a guy who's been plagued with injuries got injured again. Just announced today, Dominick Cruz injured again. He was supposed to get the next shot against Dillashaw before Barone got his next shot. With Dominick Cruz returning this past September with a dominant performance after being laid out for years with knee injuries. But just as it was seen that he was on the road back to the top to get another shot against Dillashaw, he got injured again. He released a statement today, Dominick Cruz, saying he got injured again, saying that he was trying to train healthy and trying to be safe about his training, but it was beyond his control. He has no timetable for his return, and it's on the other knee. He had a couple injuries to one knee. Now it's the good knee that never got, I think it was like the left knee that got injured, but the right knee is now the one that got injured. Now with another injury. Like to wish Mr. Cruz all the best. Man, he's been plagued by injuries, man. He needs to retire maybe because he keeps getting these injuries, man. You know, he came back in September looking all good. Now it's like, oh my God. So there you go. Wish him all the best in his recovery from another knee injury, this time on the other knee. So there you go. Now, on with, right knee. Right knee was the one that got hurt. Left knee was the one that got hurt the first time. Now it's time for my wall preview tonight. The second to last wall before the end of the new year. I did not make a wall review last week. I'll talk a little bit about last week's wall as I go through my top 5 questions that must be answered on the wall tonight. Question number 5. What happened with Ryback and Rusev? I don't watch SmackDown. Apparently on SmackDown, Ryback apparently starting a feud with Rusev for the U.S. title. That'll be intriguing to see Ryback be the first guy to beat Rusev. It'd be a great way to get Ryback back on track and regain momentum. Because his popularity's been back up since returning. And his Kane feud has put a roadblock to his return momentum. But I think a feud with Rusev could do well. And the pin Rusev would be intriguing to see Ryback and Rusev do a feud. Maybe in a match at Royal Rumble. Get to that in a second. Question number 4. We'll go down with Hogan. Hulk Hogan, being used again for appearances for WWE since returning ever since leaving TNA. Kind of like what Rampage did. You know, he went to the minor leagues, Bellator, now he's back in the UFC, the major leagues. Same thing with Hulk Hogan. He went to the minor leagues, TNA, now he's back in the major leagues, back home, WWE. And the big irony was TNA and Bellator were on the same network. Spike, now of course, Impact's now on Destination America starting in January. So we'll see what Hulk Hogan does tonight. He's the guest GM as well, since we have no power, since authority's still gone. Question number 3. What will Reigns we do tonight? Now, Reigns is back with a vengeance, and he looks like the undisputed favorite for the Royal Rumble. He's the first one in the match. He's been squashing people left and right, starting a feud with Big Show. See how that goes, but Reigns needs some momentum because he's being booked like, he's trying to regain momentum after being basically making up for lost time after being injured for so long. So we'll see what they do with Reigns tonight. Question number 2. Will new matches or participants be added for the Rumble? Since it's the Christmas show tonight, I don't think any additions will be made. We do know Brock Lesnar and Cena is official. That leads to question number 1. What will Cena do tonight to retaliate against Seth Rollins and possibly Lesnar? Now, last week, Brock Lesnar came out after the guest GM, Chris Jericho, challenged Paul Heyman to a fight. That's when Lesnar came out. I said Lesnar was going to be in Detroit because I saw local advertisements for Lesnar to be in Detroit. And he attacked Chris Jericho, beat him up. And then at the end of the night, during the main event, John Cena against Seth Rollins in a steel cage match. Despite the steel cage being used for not letting anybody in or out, there were still many interferences, including J&J security getting involved. And of course, at the end of the night, Brock Lesnar coming in, attacking Cena, helping Seth Rollins finally beat Cena at the delivering F5. It served 2 purposes. Finally gets Seth Rollins over, and helps the feud between Cena and Lesnar for Royal Rumble, with Cena getting attacked by Lesnar with FU and all that shit against the cage and all that. But I don't think Lesnar will be on Raw tonight. But I expect him in the next couple weeks to be on Raw as we head towards the Royal Rumble. But it's Christmas Raw tonight at 8, 7 Central on USA Network. That is it for my Atak Sportz today. I know it's my longest Atak Sportz ever, but hey, I had a lot to talk about. With that in mind, y'all been attacked. But the sports news from Zach. Stay tuned for my Raw review tonight. See ya! Yeah. Happy holidays.